Texas keeps walking that tightrope between wins and losses. Why does Texas continue to struggle when they lead all game? What are the keys to finishing the season strong? And what can we do to improve heading into next season? Eric Nahlin, owner of Inside Texas, stops by to catch us up on what's going on behind the scenes of the program and how Texas can get out of their own way. Stay up to date with your favorite team day in and day out over at InsideTexas.com. Subscribe today, link in the description. Too many close games are going the wrong way. How do the Longhorns get over the hump and live up to their potential that we see early in the games? Without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome back, Eric. And we had a similar second half collapse against Oklahoma State. So what was the vibe of the team after? How are they handling that psychologically? And do you think they're in a better place mentally than last year that they can stick together and finish out the season strong?
A big question that we got in the offseason was if the leadership was better and if the team had improved culture. And I mentioned that we wouldn't be able to tell that until there was adversity struck. I thought last year they actually held on pretty well, considering all the losses mounted, disappointing loss after disappointing loss, and then the dam finally broke after Iowa State. This year, hopefully we don't see that level of adversity, but so far they're doing well. Definitely dejected after that game. Sources told us that it was like the longest flight ever coming home. A whole lot of woulda, shoulda, couldas that they could have done differently, how they should have executed better, played better. No finger pointing, though. There's none of that going on, so that's good. And then, on Sunday they go back up to the facilities, work out. Everybody still disappointed, but not dejected and ready to look forward and happy about the bye week, even though they're still focused on getting better. But I do think they need a little bit of a mental break after that game. And, we'll see if it works because they have a big road game coming up. But right now, there's no drama behind the scenes. There's no quit right now. I don't think we're going to see that with this team regardless, but you don't know how the rest of the season is going to play out. So, like I said in the offseason, we would not know what the new leadership, how strong the new leadership was, how improved the team culture was, but we're getting close to testing that for sure.
Absolutely, and we're still on track for that 8-4 season, but the frustrating part is it's not like we can't hang. We're beating these teams for a majority of these games. So where is that disconnect coming from late in the game?
Yeah, I think the disconnect late in games is a couple of factors: experience, and then maybe a bit of stubbornness this past week with sticking with the long ball. I don't want to belabor that point too many times, but there's things that they could have done differently that they probably should have. I thought that they were sticking to their preferences more than what they should have, more than what Oklahoma State was wanting them to do. I think they kind of played in Oklahoma State's hands, so I think they took the bait on that. But I think they need more experience. Obviously, Quinn Ewers in his first true road environment did not fare that well. That's not entirely surprising. A lot of quarterbacks struggle, particularly early in their career on the road. I think the wind did affect the ball trajectory quite a few times. At the same time, I think Sark could have done a better job of protecting them. But I know it's dejecting to see these losses, especially given how similar they are to last season. I think that's what kind of took the wind out of my sails a little bit after the Texas Tech game, because it mirrored so many of the flaws we saw last season. I do think they're getting closer. I think the more experience they get, they'll get over the hump eventually. But that's why this K-State game coming up is so big. They get a week to regroup. Meanwhile, K-State has a very tough game coming up. And, to me, it's a must-win game. If they want to finish 8-4, which I think a lot of fans are hoping for at this point, that was my expectations coming into the season after they lost Isaiah Neyor. I revised down from 9-3 to 8-4. I think they really have to win that game. And to me, there's no excuse not to win that game.
How do we fix those late game issues on offense? What little tweaks can be made so we can finish the games? Are we headhunting too much and should look for some quicker, shorter reads to move the ball?
But I think they're not using Jordan Whittington enough. I don't even think it's close. Particularly in the first halves of games, we've seen him be a crutch. In the last couple of weeks, we haven't seen that. He's got 3 catches in the last 2 weeks. Not surprisingly, the offense has struggled in the last 2 weeks. To me, I don't want to use the word criminal, but it's baffling that they're not using him more often, especially given that the offense needs reliability, the offense needs experience. It needs somebody that it can depend on outside of the running backs down the field. And so, I don't know why they're not using him more. They were looking to cover Worthy deep last game, and then they were looking to cover the flats. So that left open the middle of the field. The middle range of the passing game was pretty open for Whittington. For him to only have 1 catch was quite surprising. So, yeah, if you wanted to compare it to boxing, it's a couple of blows to the body and then you go for the head. But it takes a lot of blows to get those hands to drop and to really open up that jaw. So I think that they are getting a little impatient with that deep shot. I can understand that. In some ways, it's to be applauded that he's trying to be that aggressive. But, you've got other playmakers and you've got better experience at wide receiver, more so than Worthy. Jatavian Sanders, Jaleel Billingsley, more 12 personnel. I think they could line up the running backs more often outside. Bijan Robinson has done a tremendous job with his hands and getting open. Really, he does a better job of going up and getting the ball than Whittington, to be honest. So I would try to get him more involved in the passing game, and not just from the backfield, but splitting them out. So I do think that it seemed like they were way more balanced earlier in the season about between working the middle of the field instead of just going over the top. And I think they need to revert back to that. It's one thing to want to run it and throw it over the top, but they're not quite there yet. They should understand they're not there yet, especially there with the offensive line, especially with the young quarterback. And then Worthy they were just entirely disconnected. I don't understand all that miscommunication, but I don't know how many passes it was going to take for Sarkisian to realize, hey, we need to change things up. But apparently 16 wasn't the number.
And for the defense, I have a hard time going after that side of the ball when the offense stalls so much in the second half. Being on the field that long will just lead to points, especially against volume tempo teams. But what are we looking to shore up in the final games? And do the defensive backs actually struggle to cover, or are they just seeing too many overall passing attempts?
Yeah, the other side of the coin where it mirrors last year is that, the offense isn't having prolonged drives like it has in the first half. And we saw this last year, and it leaves the defense on the field too long and they get tired out. And the defense actually did a really good job in the third quarter, much better than we saw last season where, they forced a number of 3-and-outs or short drives. They were getting off the field on third down for the most part. And the offense couldn't capitalize. And, that was not always the case last year. That was usually a lot of times when the defense would go on and give up a lot of points and they couldn't get themselves off the field. I think they are improving. What's hurt the defense in the last few weeks is injuries in the secondary. Up until the Iowa State game, they were extremely healthy. When they lose those guys, they're losing a lot of experience. The depth isn't there behind them that they want. They do have depth pieces, but they're more guys that you'll have ready with another offseason rather than right now. They're having to make too many changes. Losing Anthony Cook is a big issue. He's been a heady player. He's been a steady player. He's good versus the run. He knows where to be versus the pass. Just a reliable player, and they don't really have somebody to fill that void. Luckily, they have Kansas State coming up, which is anything but a passing juggernaut.
The mantra even preseason was next year is the year, but we're actually going to lose some key pieces, especially on defense. So what's the plan to avoid a slide in year 3?
I get that fans still have some questions over Pete Kwiatkowski, but a quick test to see how much he's improved is they're going to experience a lot more losses on defense than we ever imagined in August and before that. If you're sitting there wondering how we're going to replace all those players, that's actually a good question because that means we saw a lot more development than we anticipated. So all of a sudden, Keandre Coburn is a big loss. Heading into this season, nobody knew what to expect from him, but he's had a career year. T'Vondre Sweat has played well. Anthony Cook, who we just mentioned, is having a good year. Jamison, I know that he had a bust last week, or not necessarily a bust. He just got beat. He's been consistent and steady. So they're going to suffer some real losses. DeMarvion Overshown is another one. Luckily, in the modern football game, the University of Texas is always going to be a winner of the portal, and the transfer portal is always going to benefit Texas disordinately to most schools. It's going to appeal in a number of different ways. Playing time is always going to be a number one. You got to remember that the portal is going to appeal to people with a mercenary. They want to go. They're looking for playing time. They're trying to get to the NFL. They're trying to get minutes. Texas is going to offer that at a number of positions. So for next year to be the actual year where they win 10 games, where they win the conference, they're going to have to fill some holes. But they also going to see the same level of development that we saw this year that made these guys that we didn't have high expectations for before seemingly big losses. So I think Texas is on the right path. They are going to do very well in the portal. Last year, we mentioned that they were going to allocate their spots for the offensive players, and they did that by a margin of 5-2. This year, it's going to be more towards defense and to fill those holes at linebacker, safety. Defensive tackle is going to suffer probably the biggest losses in the program. Moro Ojomo, Keandre Coburn, T'Vondre Sweat. But not only are they going to develop the younger people that they have in place, they're also going to get some guys that, hopefully they'll be on the level of Ryan Watts.
Just got to stay the course, brother, and good update as usual. Please let the viewers know where to stay locked in with the team.
As always, you can find us at InsideTexas.com. We've got a killer crew of guys. Got you covered from X's and O's, the Palace intrigue behind the scenes, story about realignment. We're going to have the latest on that. Recruiting, nonstop recruiting. The portal is going to be on fire. We covered the portal about as well as you can last year, although that's a very, very tough aspect of the job to cover. There's so many moving parts. But as always, you can find us at InsideTexas.com. Come check us out right now. We're running a special. It's $1 for 4 months. So give us a shot.
And that's a wrap on Eric Nahlin. Make sure to go subscribe over at InsideTexas.com. Thanks for hanging out. Watch some more of my videos here. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you want to support quality Texas content. As always, hook 'em.